Back again for another installment. Your brother, your friend, your dietitian. Today I want to talk about a topic that's very common, is in regards to children not eating enough. I want to discuss this because I hear it a lot. It's something that people are concerned about. I have friends with young children or with babies, and it's something that's important. Again, in my last video, I discussed what is a dietitian, how does one become one, what are the functions of a dietitian, so you can check it out. I have training in special skills dealing with maternal and child health. So maternal being the mother, child being the child, children. So there's a couple things to consider when you're talking about whether or not your child is eating enough. I want to give you a couple tips, right? 4 tips to help out with that. First tip is portion, portion, portion. A lot of times, mothers, fathers, abuelas, grandmothers, they're giving too much food to the child and expecting them to eat all of it, and then they say, oh, how come my child's not eating enough? For example, in the grain category, a child that's between the age of 1 and 2 only needs to consume about 1/4 of a slice of bread, or a 1/4 of a cup, 1/2 a cup cereal, and it can be half a slice of bread. So, I mean, you notice how much bread is. You know, that's a regular piece of bread. 1/4 of that, that's a small slice. And you need that multiple times throughout the day, but in one sitting, in one meal, that's all that you need. So they would need probably like a whole slice of bread throughout the day, but in their meals they only need that portion. Now if you're talking about a 5-year-old, or you're talking about a child that's a little bit older, then you could say for them they only need about 1 slice at that time. Cup of crackers, 1/2 cup of crackers. So when you really look at these portions, it's like, wait a minute, if my 2-year-old only needs 1/4 of a cup of fruits for a serving, because you need multiple servings throughout the day, but in one serving, one sitting, they only need 1/4 of a cup. 1/4 of a cup, I have an example here, that's tiny. I mean, this is 1/4 of a cup. So you scoop up some mango chunks, you scoop up some watermelon chunks, slam that you splat that on the plate. That's their portion of fruit at that period, at that meal, and then they can get more throughout the day. But you add more, then they eat that 1/4 cup, and then you're expecting them to eat more, and then you're looking like, wait a minute, how come they're not eating enough? It's because you're giving too much, right? Now, for example, for the proteins, now if you're giving them, say, beans, if you're giving a 4-year-old, 5-year-old some beans, all they need is 4 tablespoons. We're talking about tablespoons in portions. That's small. So this is a tablespoon. This is, for me, this is 1 scoop. This is nothing. For a 1-year-old, they only need 2 scoops of something like beans or lentils, right? You're looking at a 5-year-old, they need like 4 scoops of these. So again, we're giving portions that are in excess. You look up the portion sizes. Like I said, it's a little bit more difficult with the YouTube, because I can't give you the specifics for each child unless I'm asked directly, and I can answer. But it differs for each child as the child gets older. Like for a 5-year-old, you would need for vegetable or fruit portion, it would be 1/2 a cup. So this is 1/2 a cup. Even this isn't a large portion. This is small. So when you give them more than that for vegetables, for fruits, for beans, and it's even less for dairy. For meats. If you're giving the child meat, it's even smaller portions that are recommended. And of course, I'm vegetarian, but if you get to choose how you feed your child, and if you're giving the meats, it's even smaller portion. They only need about 1 tablespoon or to about 2 tablespoons of the meat. In terms of if that's the lifestyle you choose to live, and give it to them. So first thing to consider is portions. Maybe they're getting too much, right? Next thing to consider is cutting out the junk food. Number 2 is cutting out the junk food, because you have this new culture where we have more processed foods. We have more foods with added sugars. you know, preservatives, you have monosodium glutamate, you have these dyes, you have all these things that aren't good for the child, one, and two, they're going to ruin the child's appetite. Junk food should not even be early introduced to a child for at least the first 5 years, because you want to set up a firm foundation of healthy foods. You don't even want to introduce them to that junk food because it's going to ruin their palate, going to ruin their appetite. So if they are on junk food and you're giving them some, or your grandma's giving them some, or your mom is giving them some, or your wife is giving them some, husband, whoever, brother, their uncle, cut back on the junk food. Cut back on the cookies, the candy bars, the desserts, those sweets, the chips, the salty, crunchy stuff with added sugar and salt. Avoid those. You're going to notice that the appetite of the child's going to increase. They're going to be a little cranky at first when you cut back, but cut back anyway and offer instead some healthier snacks, okay? You can have some whole grain crackers with almond butter, peanut butter, different things like that, with fruit, snacks like that. So cut back on those junk foods. You're going to notice an increase in the appetite and say, hey, my child's eating more. Next thing is you want to avoid giving food for a whole hour before they start eating. So imagine, you know, your husband or wife said, hey, I'm going to take you out, we're going to get you something to eat, baby, and it's going to be at this nice 5-star restaurant. But just before you went out, maybe 30 minutes before, they take you to some fast food joint, pick up something quick, and give you that. So you eat a little bit of that, and then you get to the nice 5-star restaurant, and you're like, wait a minute, I can't eat anything. I'm full already. I'm halfway full. So your appetite is gone. Same thing goes for a child. An hour before they eat, don't give them anything. Give them some water, give them that's about it, just water. And then after you give them water for like an hour or 30 minutes before they're eating, then you give them the food, their appetite is going to be increased. They're going to have a better clearance of the food on the plate. The last tip that really will get them good, this is good, is wait until after they run around, they're playing, catch them at that moment. You have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you give them those standard meals, but if you catch them and they're out playing, go prepare lunch, have it ready for them. Because after they're done, exhausted, burn those calories playing with their friends, outside playing with their cousin or brother or whatever, their appetite is going to increase. Just like when you work out a lot, you burn more calories, your body's going to need more calories, you're going to be hungry. So that's the way to get the best results. And you'll start seeing, hey, my child is eating more. Hey, my child is putting on weight. You start looking at the portions and realizing, hey, maybe they are eating enough. Also, you cut back on the junk food and say, hey, now there's less empty calories going in. Because those calories from those junk foods, they don't have a lot of nutrients in them. You want to get calories from rich plant-based foods, grains, legumes, beans, you know, those type of foods, fruits, vegetables, nice green, purple vegetables, things like that, as opposed to giving them junk food that has empty calories, lots of calories but no nutrition. Lastly, or not lastly, hour before they eat, only water. Lastly, after they go and play, you give them food because they're going to be hungrier, more calories burned. Here's my tip from me to you. Again, your brother, your friend, your dietitian, here to service. Peace and blessings. Thanks for tuning in.